This is Mitch, and welcome to the Real Estate Investor Summit podcast. You will not believe the day I had yesterday. Man, I had a day. It's like I had all this stuff going on, and it all happened on one day. You ever have that? Like there's no good plan, man. We'll do this week, and 3 days later we'll start that, and then everyone has time delays or move forward, and all of a sudden I'm pouring 5,800 square feet of concrete slab and building stuff all over the countryside, and it all lands on one day. So go figure. I don't know. So I guess I'm all wound up. I haven't come down from that yet. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm really trying to do is never mind. I gotta go there. So I got Jay Helms on the line. He's over there in Florida somewhere. Lucky little rat.
Sunny Florida, Pensacola.
Florida. Said he went to Dallas and says there's something different in our kind of heat. And I said, yeah, there's no breeze.
That is true. I actually live in a community called Gulf Breeze, which is right outside of Pensacola.
Gulf Breeze. Well, we live over here in sweltering still. Okay. So Jay, tell us. We're going to be talking about. He specializes in the buy and hold. We got a giveaway today. It's a 10-step guide to buying a small multifamily rental property. I'm going to give you the link to that here in a little bit. Actually, let's just give the link right now. reinvestorsummit.com/Helms, HELMS. Did I get that right, Jay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as you guys know, there's two sides to this coin. There's the buy and hold, and then there's the sell on a note and do the seller financing thing. They both have their pros and their cons. Both of them can make you a multimillionaire in a short period of time or a long period of time, depends on you. And we're just going to debate that subject and talk about the pros and cons of each one. And maybe we'll get some war stories out of Jay here.
I've got a couple.
Well, if you got tenants, you got to have a war story. I mean, you can get a war story anywhere, but you could probably write, book of war stories with tenants sometimes, especially before you get good at hiring them.
Yeah.
And good at firing them,
Yeah. And the one thing I've learned, I wouldn't say early on, because it took me a year or two to figure this out, is professional property management is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about that a second. You really do have to, for me, I've been doing this for I've actually been, in real estate since I was 21, and I'm 58 now. So that's way too much to add or subtract right now. But
congrats.
I can say a long time. I've been full time for over 22 years and 24 years. And by now, I would just rather bash someone's head in with a baseball bat than to listen to one more lie, bullshit crap, take my ceiling fan, walk off with my stove or my refrigerator. Like, I can't afford to be face up with these people anymore because I'm freaking had it. I mean, I had people shave their head and tell me they had cancer, and I out of the graciousness of my heart and doing what I thought God wanted me to do, which is what God wanted me to do, I let that lady stay in there for free for 8 months. And when I finally went to check on her and I knocked on the door, her mother came to the door and said, hello. And I said, I haven't heard from Keisha. I'm hoping she's still with us. Did she survive her cancer? And she goes, Keisha never had no cancer. And I said, holy crap. She came to the door, still had her head shaved. Turns out she was just, one of those head shaving people.
I don't have anything like that. But yeah, you're right. Sounds like you're on full tilt. I learned very quickly that property management is not a business I want to be in,
Well, so the cool thing is you got to get somebody between you and that. But the next question is, how many properties do you need to do that? Because, I was always under the impression starting out, until you had about at least 30 and maybe 50 little houses or units, it was hard to get someone in between you and them because you weren't making really any money to begin with. You were just struggling and learning your ropes and everything. But how many do you think?
I started with our third property is when I said, okay, this is not for me. I've got to hire somebody, to handle these, and the whole thing with where we're at now with the W-2 capitalist and realizing that you can have a full-time job, a successful full-time job, and invest in real estate. I have to outsource almost everything, right? And that's why I'm focused on buy and hold, where I like the flipping idea. I've never flipped a house because I don't feel like I've ever had the time. Also have a young family, right? So, but yeah, it was three, I think our third property is when we first initiated having a property manager implemented. And we've been through some property managers. There's
Well, that's the other thing, right? I
yeah,
mean, first of all, the big problem is when you're doing it yourself, it's your money and it's highly personal, and that's where
yes,
that's where the rub comes in, and that's where you can get yourself into some trouble, especially if you're not long on temperament.
yeah,
Um, uh, Second of all, so the people you hire, the other side of the coin is they don't care because it's not their money. So you kind of, first of all, pick which knife you're going to fall on,
yeah.
and then
What do you want to manage? Do you want to manage the tenant or do you want to manage the property manager? There is no a way of getting out of managing your property. You're going to manage the tenant or you're going to manage the property manager. One of the two, right?
and wholeheartedly, I say choose to manage the manager. I'm
Yep.
with you on that. Same thing with like my collections on my notes. I
Yeah.
got a note servicing company.
Yeah. You don't want to trust that to anybody else, right?
I
Because
don't get paid to send out late letters and chase people around and go collect. I get paid to buy houses at steep discounts and get
Yep.
them producing an income. That's what I get paid at.
and that's how we were able to get use property manager with just 3 doors, right? Is we bought our first 3 houses were in 2014. So right after the big dip, things started coming up. We got some heavy discounted properties, so we bought them right, and we were able to hire those property. There was enough margin in the deal to hire those property managers.
Yeah. So the next thing. So all you do is you just set up your numbers to handle the expense of
Yep.
a property manager. Now let's talk about the cost. What does a decent property manager cost when you have 3 units? What does
Yeah,
it
it's
cost per unit?
it's going to be about 10% of rent on a monthly basis, but then you have the upfront costs, which it's always negotiable, but you can get somewhere around half of the first month's rent, and then they're going to keep any fees, typically like late fees or pet fees or something like that, to take on that initial marketing expense that they're going to have. So, but you're right, it's one of those things, and I have started. I've been through probably 3 property managers now. I've found one. He's really solid, and I've actually started looking for properties in his city because I know when I find a property that it's going to be properly managed, right? So we're in a couple of different cities, Mobile, Pensacola. We just closed on a deal in Waxahachie, a little south of Dallas.
Man, I bet you Alabama's a good place to rent houses because I have some students who are trying to do the owner financing there, and the problem they're all having there is nobody has a down payment over $2,000 or $3,000, which is basically what a deposit and first month's rent cost. And I don't know
what part of Alabama are they in?
it's around Birmingham and outside of Birmingham, and the houses there are very affordable, and that's what you probably are looking for in rent houses. I'm guessing, as well as in owner finance houses, the sweet spot's like under 150,000 for me.
Yeah.
Is that where you're at?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, and when I say under 150,000, that's what I'm selling it for. I'm trying to buy the house for 70 or 80 or 90,
Right.
and then sell it for like 150. In your case, you're picking them up for 150 or less.
The
Whole lot more rate of return in the lesser expensive houses, right? But the turnover and the hassle can be a lot more too if you get too low on the bottom of the scale.
Yeah, because then you attract a different tenant base, right?
Yeah. So what keeps happening over there is they'll have some money, and then they buy a car that's worth more than almost as much as the house they're going to live in. They buy a freaking car that's worth as much as the house, and afford the house.
I don't know if y'all have this problem in Texas, but in Alabama, and there are parts of Florida too. You will drive by this huge plot of land. I say huge is relative, right? So in Alabama and Pensacola, this is going to be about a 2-acre plot of land.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a mobile home. Outside the mobile home, you're going to have a brand new Chevy truck, and attached to the Chevy truck is a brand new bass boat.
Right. Jet ski, bass boat. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, somebody's either they have their priorities messed up or I do. I'm not really sure which one yet.
Yeah, so this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how you should sell that nice house and all that stuff, and you should get a mobile home and learn to live.
Yeah.
Get a boat. I mean, life is about living. Get the boat, get the truck. Don't worry about the house so much. And no, I'm being
Let me
sarcastic.
introduce you to my wife. She's going to object to that.
Yeah, boy, you're going to miss her.
There is a country song about that, right?
Yeah. Because if he doesn't get home from fishing,
That's awesome.
he's going to leave. And he starts thinking, man, I'm sure going to miss her.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brad Paisley, I believe.
I think you're right. It sounds like something he'd sing.
Okay, so talking about management, let's talk about the acquisition of these rentals. How are you marketing for them, and what are you looking for?
So we're kind of past the single family homes now. When we look for rentals, we're looking for multiple doors. Doesn't
that make a lot more sense? Because why would you? I mean, the one-offs are just, there's not enough volume. There's not enough mass, and I guess it's just as easy to go look for one thing as it is to look for another thing, right?
It is. And, one of those things I find out, the more I get involved in that circle, I'm thinking, okay, if I missed out on this for so many years, or if this many people just been part of, looking for multifamily, trying to gauge where that market is and kind of where the saturation is not. And one of the things that I keep questioning, or what I like about multifamily, is you close on one property, you get multiple doors, right? So it's one transaction. I don't know, I love your concept of be the bank. I'm trying to get there because I hate dealing with banks. They are one of the biggest pains in my ass when it comes to this whole real estate investing. So one of the things that I'm trying to do, are you familiar with the infinite banking strategy?
Yeah, with the insurance.
Yeah.
I went through that, and
okay.
I'll give you my take on it. But
I would love to hear it. Yeah.
Okay, so my partner is a CPA with Coopers. He was a CPA with Coopers and Lybrand, which is now Pricewaterhouse and Coopers. He was a managing partner in Austin, which meant like it was a law practice, he'd have had his name on the door, Right. One of those guys. He'd earned his way. He was there for 15 years. The guy's the antithesis of Mitch Stephen. I'm street. This guy's Wall Street,
Yeah.
Which is why he's my partner in the hard money lending business. And that's why we're partners, is because he's everything I'm not. And I showed him that the money for guys like he and I, who were not multi-billionaires, and even though he's very,
right?
He wasn't, it takes a lot of money to get into certain games, and it takes a lot less if you're dealing in the lesser parts of town, which is how I learned how to become successful. Was I could afford to play in certain areas of town, even little Mitch could. So he puts it out. I listened to this thing where you're supposed to buy life insurance policies. They get vested, then you can borrow against them. Tell me if I'm glossing over this too.
No, you're right. Yep.
And then eventually you become your own bank, and you're just loaning and borrowing your own money, paying yourself back, which is a great thing. The problem is, I went to him and I said, what's wrong with this picture? Why can't I make myself pull the trigger? I'm listening, but there's something holding me back and I can't figure out what it is. He said, Mitch, they're talking about the front end loads on those insurance policies are so heavy that it takes you 3 years or 4 years to just get to where you're breaking even, because these guys that sell these policies, they get the first years of this payment or the bulk of it, and they get paid well. Second of all, by the time you finish this and everything, it's about a 7% rate of return. He says, here's your problem. You make so much more than 7% on your money, it's not even funny. And you don't wait years to do it. You do it in short periods of time.
Yeah.
First, he says, this is what you're feeling. And the other thing is it's going to really divide you up and get money in pockets that you really can't get to. And if you need it, that's probably bothering you too. And I said yes on all counts. But the main thing was, he says, the main reason why you're stuck, you feel it, but you can't put your finger on it. He says, you make way more than the 7 or 8 or 9 or 10% that they're promising you. And you don't have to wait for it.
Yeah.
You don't have to, you're going to make it tomorrow. And these people are asking you to wait a year or 2 or 3 before the commissions get paid.
You start
making. So I hope you're not in the insurance sales business, because if you did, I just.
I'm not. No, I've been toying around with this idea because the language that they use to market it really sinks in with me. If I can never deal with a bank again on buying and selling properties, that
Okay,
would make
so let's switch gears then.
okay.
I have a course on private money changes everything. I mean, I have $16 million worth of private money headed to $20 million. It's just steadily, because when you start paying people back on time,
Yeah.
these people have been with me 10, 15, 20 years. I have, quite a reputation now of paying people on time. I mean, decades. So it's a little, it's easier for me to raise private money now than some people, but that doesn't, I started off at 0-2. And the main thing is the collateral.
Yeah.
But check out Private Money Changes Everything at my website, 1000houses.com.
Absolutely.
And I think I'm charging $997 for that course. It's not, what do you say? It's not a real bulky course. I mean, it doesn't take a lot to carry it down the street. You don't need a wheelbarrow or anything. It's just target rich. I mean, it's thin, but it's just right on the money, how to talk to these, or how I talk to these people. I'm sure there's a billion ways. There's a Jay Connor and Alan Calgill, and I've looked at all their stuff. We are all kind of uniquely different. The biggest objection to anybody is I don't have a track record. I have a bankruptcy. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It's about the collateral. It's not about you. It's what's he going to get if you don't pay him. And if that ratio is good enough, then it doesn't matter. And I've used this all the time. It doesn't matter if you're Charles Manson. You should get the private guy.
Yeah.
Who cares? I'm either going to get paid or I'm going to get this piece of property.
Right.
If that property is good enough, then that's it. So mainly it's about who to market to, how to market to them, and how to get people to ask you if they can loan you money instead of you asking them. As soon as you walk in and talk to people about, hey, I'd like to talk about borrowing money, I mean, they get in this stance.
They get their defense mode up, right? Yeah. I'll definitely check it out. Definitely check it out.
It's completely worth it, brother. And even, I'll even invite you to, I'll give you my phone number. You can call me about it. I'd love a testimony from you if you want to, but
sure.
The answer to the problem though is private money. I have $16 million with an 8% 5-year interest only money. And that was just because most of the people that I've been borrowing to were old and they didn't want to go 15-year fixed or 10-year fixed. Well, I mean, I'll tell you, like, I don't know if I'm going to live longer, 20 years. I'm not giving you 20. Of course, they've been with me for 20 years. It didn't matter. They kept re-upping, but they didn't want to be locked in. Yeah.
Okay. Something else come along, right? They wanted to be able to.
Yeah. But the truth of the matter is these people all become my friends. And if they need some money out of the pile that they got, or all of it, I mean, I'll just go replace them with someone else. I mean, I'm not going to say, screw you, Doc. You've been with me for 10 years back because it says you got 3 years left to go. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And then you use the banks to cash those people out at 4.5% and 5% on 20-year fixed, 10-year balloon stuff. But you got to strike with private money because they don't ask any questions, really. You really got to police yourself. Now, they will the first 2 or 3 loans, maybe, at least the first one. But after that, they really don't want to do anything. And you police yourself. I never let anybody in over 65%. If I want to buy a house for 70 or 80%, I got to put the rest into my money. That's what makes them want to loan the money and I average like 58% LTV.
Nice.
Give them the first 58%. And sometimes it's 40%. And you can actually cultivate rich people by finding a 65% LTV loan you want them to do, but go ahead and put 40% in yourself, or put 20% on a zero credit card or something for a couple of years, and only ask them for 50%, and get in with them. These are the kind of tricks that I'm teaching, like how to make a regular deal into like a solid deal. If you need $20,000 worth of rehab and $50,000 to buy the house, don't ask them for 70 on a $100,000 house. Ask them for 50 and put 20 of the rehab on a 0% credit card, and you accomplish 2 things. 1, pay 0%. 2, make the loan a no-brainer for them.
Yeah.
Until you get in with them,
Yeah.
And you can talk to complete strangers about those numbers. They won't run you off.
Yeah. If those don't make sense to a complete stranger, you probably don't need to be talking to them.
That's try that to the banks. Now, the banks are some really good money right now. The money is so cheap, but you got to be in order. You have to have a track record, so to speak, or the LTVs have to be out of this world. But
You're right. It's hard to beat it's also kind of scary. I rode by a bank the other day that said offering 100% financing. And the only thing
now
that
you guys in Florida have been doing that forever. And last time we had a collapse, I think you're at 110% over value, because
yeah,
they were loaning based on what the appreciation was going to be in the next quarter.
yeah, and I'm going to pick on our southern friends. Most of that was Miami, Dade counties. So, I don't know what the ratio was up here in Santa Rosa and Pensacola Beach, but it was most of that was Miami Dade.
I mean, that was a disaster waiting to happen. I mean, when no one has any skin in the game and everyone's even walking out with money in their pocket, who cares if the property's any good? They'll patch up the holes. They'll not take pictures of the broken hot water heater. I don't know. The whole thing's just set up to fail.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons I haven't failed for 24 years is because I won't let my lenders in a crappy position. I don't want them in a crappy position.
Yeah. Yeah.
Forever. And I need their references, and I need their kids and their uncles and their granddaughters, whoever falls into money. I need them to recommend me.
Sure. Yeah. So what is your idea? What are your thoughts on where the market's headed? There's a lot of speculation on, hey, we're at 2007, 2008 levels. Where do you think is going?
Honestly?
Yeah.
If Trump gets reelected, we're fine for another however long until he's in, another 4 years past the remaining year and a half or whatever he's got left.
Yeah.
If he's not, if the Democratic Party won, we're going in a recession like in a very short period of time, like major. Yep. Like him or don't like him, the optimism that he builds into this economy, just like what I said when we were talking before the show, I had all this stuff going on, and I said a post. I said that damn Trump. He's got everybody working. That son of that SOB, everybody's working. I can't get any help. Damn, they're and it's no wonder the wages are going up. I'm having to pay more for good people.
Good reason too, right?
Right. But let's get one thing straight. Things, no matter who the president is, things can't go up forever. There's got to be a market adjustment, and there's going to be a market adjustment during the time period that's there, but it won't be a recession. It'll just be a correction. You know what I mean? Yeah. The last recession we had, a lot of people called that a depression.
Yeah, I've heard that.
People classify that as a depression. So if you were able to survive that, or then you survived, short of a depression, which some people did call it a depression, if your model held up, then you're good. Now, there's two models that I know hold up really good in a recession. And I hate to say in a depression because I really don't know. I never.
Yeah, I wasn't around in the 20s, and it seemed like
really but I think we have checks and balances now on that. I'm not sure.
It's hard for me to say depression
too. You can create your own economy. You know what I mean?
You should be able to. Yes. Yeah. If you have any kind of hustle or will and desire, you should be able to do that. But yeah, I can't use depression because I have my grandmother who was born in the early 20s. She wrote and talked to us about taking the mattresses out to the front lawn and sweeping them and dusting them off with a stick. That's a depression, right? I didn't get a raise for a couple of years. That's not a depression.
Well, you know what they say the difference in a recession and a depression is, right?
What's that?
What is it? A recession. It's a recession until it happens to you, and then it's a depression.
And then it's yeah.
But here's the strategies that work. Renting should always work during because people got to have a place to live. I mean, let's face it, people don't need a place to live in even humble quarters, especially in humble quarters. Then we're picking up guns and we're going somewhere because there's something, and your money wasn't worth anything anyways. No matter what you had at stock market, with the possible exception of gold, but I'll tell you about that argument later. And the owner finance strategy worked. When I was seller financing houses, it was during the recession, and rents would go up generally in the recession because the banks are closed and they're not giving loans for anything. And people are losing their jobs, and their consistency to qualify for a loan is down overall across the board. So everyone's having to rent. So there's pressures put on rents. But my owner finance houses, I established the price of my owner finance house, which is the OFV, the owner finance value. I established that value with a formula that starts with market rent. And I back into it. So as the rents are going up in the recession, my owner finance houses are going up in the recession. And the only reason it works was I didn't need a bank to buy the house. And my buyer didn't need a bank to buy the house for me because I'm financing it for him. So I'm bankless in this strategy. And so is renting if you can solve the problem of how to acquire, because you definitely have to acquire during the recession, right?
Yeah, it's best time, right?
And that's when it gets the toughest. So you better start cultivating your private money now before the storm hits, because it's too late.
Yeah, I keep using this phrase stacking cash because people ask me what I'm doing right now. We've got one more property we're set to close on next week, but after that we're gonna be done for a while.
Yeah, but you can't stack enough cash.
Yeah, and that's it, and you bring up a good point there where I've been thinking, okay, I'm gonna stack my cash, our personal cash. What I need to be doing, what I need to add to my strategy is to stack others people's cash. You know what I'm saying?
And start having this conversation before the recession, because it's going to get scary in the recession. But here's the thing I talked about in that private money changes everything course. It gets real easy to identify people and to talk to people about loaning you money in the recession, because usually one of the signs of the recession is the stock market's just gone in the tank. You know? Yeah. And they're pulling out, they're scared, and now you're asking them to loan on a tangible asset. You either get paid or you get a house. And this house should be worthy of the amount of money that you're more than worthy of the amount of money that you're loaning, or this small multifamily place, whatever.
Yeah.
It should be, and it can produce an income. If they get it, it can produce an income. When you lose a stock certificate or that stock drops, there's nothing you can do about it. But in the housing business, there's a lot of things you can do to roll up your sleeves and change the outcome of your game. So, please. One of the things I love raising money when the stock market's falling is because I can pick out who to talk to real easy. I walk in, you go on an elevator, he's dressed real nice, right? Real nice watching. All you have to go is say, "Wow, did you see that stock market today?" Second, watch his face.
Yeah, I love the tactic. Yeah,
he's like, some of them drop their head and go, "Yeah, I'm losing my ass. I'm just losing my ass today." And I said, I'm so glad I chose a different path. I chose to not ever do that again. I took control of my own future. You don't have to live that way, sir.
Yeah, I love it.
And then all of a sudden you got a coffee appointment.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you're right. And in the W-2 world, I run into tons of folks who don't understand real estate. They're all focused on the stock market, and I'll ask them, okay, how are you doing in the stock market? Well, right now everybody's up, right?
Well, they're all millionaires right now.
Yeah. And I feel like there's a lot of folks on that Titanic, and
people go to me and says, "Hey, I'm up 100% or whatever." I said, "Oh, so you're out? So you got out?" That's my next. So you got out? Oh no, I'm still in. He says, "Well, you're not up. You're not up shit.
You're not up. That's play money until you hit that cash
You'll be up
button.
When you get out and pay your tax." You know what I mean?
Yeah. And back to your point about, buying and holding units, buying and holding rental properties is somewhat recession proof. We don't focus on luxury rentals. We're in that class B minus, C plus area, some C minus. I got a couple of D's, but I'm getting rid of those. I don't want to be there anymore.
Don't finance your D's and make someone else go in and fix them up.
Well, the problem there is they're owned by or at least I think it's a problem. We're under contract to sell them now anyway, but
it's just an idea.
It's a great idea. I don't want to be there anymore. It was great to start out. Cash flow is still amazing, but I want to turn that cash flow into exponential cash flow with some different assets. But
time to change the blood, huh?
Yeah. There's, and these are some properties we thought we'd buy and hold forever because they're in a D area. They're not going to improve in value. They're just going to cash flow. And
got you going though, right?
They did. Yeah. Those good it's like our starter homes, right? Not in the sense of a starter home neighborhood, but just a starter home. But yet those class B and class C properties, I don't think, why the rents may stay the same or go up. If a recession does happen or even depression, then your tenants are going to just change out a little bit. The guy who could afford $2,000 a month now can only afford $1,000 a month. he's going to be our tenant now, right? Versus living in his own home.
Or maybe not. Maybe the kids move back in with mom. They combine their income and they get to still live in a house and not under a bridge.
That's an option too. Yeah.
But I used to buy houses in those first time drive-by houses. Where you buy a house and get your first drive-by shooting.
Yeah. I haven't had that happen yet.
I in my early days, 20 whatever years ago, I thought because I was poor, I had to buy cheap houses, and it was a misnomer, and everyone.
It is. So I'll give you a war story on we talked about war stories. I'll give you one from that, my experience. I thought I had to buy cheap houses. I bought this thing at a tax deed auction for $7,000. I thought it was abandoned, thought it was emptied. I drive by the house, electricity's on, because it's at nighttime. I can see the lights on. I'm like, what the hell? So I finally talked to my lawyer and said, hey, how do I don't want to walk up to this guy's door because I'm not comfortable doing that. How do I get him to respond to something? Sent him a certified letter. He signed for the letter. Basically said, hey, contact me now on the property, whatnot. I need to get you out, or I need to get you under a lease. Come to find out, this guy didn't own the property. The reason why I went to tax deed auction was because the owner of it was in prison. This guy had been squatting there for almost a decade because the other guy was in prison for that long or longer. And he was stealing his mom's disability checks to buy supplies to cook meth in the backyard.
Wow. I think I ran into that guy.
So I very quickly got him out. But on his way out, he absolutely destroyed the property to the point where we just bulldozed it over and put a mobile home on it. And but the good thing is, this is the silver lining. The story I tell myself to make me feel good about this purchase is that there's a lot of kids running up and down this street. It was that house. It was the worst house on the block, so to speak. It is now cleaned up. It's got a
community a favor.
Yeah, I feel like I did. We're still going to make a pretty good return on it when we sell. We hadn't hit the cash register button yet, but we have a good tenant in there. She's been great. He or she, I don't really know. Again, property manager is handling all that for me. But yeah, it's one of those things where I look back and knowing what I now know, I would have never done that deal. And it might be why I got it for $7,000. So
it was why you got it for $7,000, but I can't tell you the number of deals I probably wouldn't have done if I'd only known what I was going to go through. But at the end of the day, I went through it, and they work out. I muscle through it, and we muscle through these kind of things, people like you and me, and we come out on the other side, and they're okay. I mean, it makes you money now, right?
It does. It does. It cash flows very well, and then if we can, it's got some title issues because of the tax deed, but if we're going to eventually sell it in a couple of years, we'll make a extremely nice return on it.
Wow. So I learned a thing with tenants before. It served me very well. This is a little nugget for the new guys out there. When I inherited these houses, or I would rent a house to somebody, and then their boyfriend would end up living in the house, which I never knew about. Someone I didn't know. First thing I try to do is I get the information on them, or always try to get information on everybody. But when I really have a trouble tenant, I got some friends down at the police department, and I just run them. And it's unbelievable how many of them have warrants. And have a warrant when they live like that. They're living like this because they're not right up here.
Yeah.
So when they're not right in your house, they're probably not right out in public either. You know what I mean? So there's a good chance they have warrants, and I always run them. And if they have warrants, it's real easy to get them out. I just knock on the door and say, "Look, you got warrants." I'm very good friends with a lot of people at the police department, and they're going to be here in 24 hours. You're not out of my house. And if my ceiling fans and my stuff's not here, I will find you. If you leave my house alone, I'll just let you go about your marriage.
And this is, so I don't know if you can do that in Florida. I don't know. That falls under the property management piece that I'm not going to deal with. I did a lot of things though that weren't in the property code, I'm sure. Well,
at 107 degrees, I would take a baseball bat to the outside unit, with a window unit,
Yeah.
And I went over there one time. In my book, I wrote this story. I went over there one time and I knocked on the door. He says, "I'm here to fix your window unit." He says, "What's wrong with it? It's running fine." I said, "No, it's not running right." And I went and I beat the hell out of it and I shut it down. He goes, "What are you doing, man? What are you doing?" He says, "Now it works. Now it works perfect. It works just like you pay." They got to be in balance, you know.
I don't know that.
I couldn't let
I
you
don't know
jail.
that that's legal in Florida either, but that's an
It's not
interesting
legal here.
tactic.
It's not legal here. But sometimes, like I said, sometimes you just have enough. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
No,
That's that's why I
I
had to get a
understand.
property manager in between me and them because, you know, someone was probably going to get a baseball bat shoved with their keister, and it was probably going to be me because I'm
Yeah.
not that big, and those guys were mean.
Well, and you may initially win, but the battle on that one would be long, right? You get taken to court, and I think you would definitely lose on
They're
that
all
one.
sidewalk lawyers. That's what we call them. They know the law better than most attorneys.
They do, they do. I had a professional tenant who I finally got rid of in that Class D property that we're selling, and it was nice. It was.
So how many units you up to?
So we close next week. We'll be up to 327.
Holy cow! You're not messing around.
So we're well. So a little caveat to that: we don't own all of those units. We're limited partners in a couple of multifamily, bigger multifamily deals. So we get a piece of that pie. But I like throwing that number out there just because it's easy
Hats
math
off
for
to you for
me.
your transparency because I saw a lot of people walk around town saying, "I got 1,000 units," and I find out, they own 10% of a consortium.
Yeah. No.
Have 100.
Yeah. No. And I've never heard anybody actually say, "How do you do that?" Right. So you know, a lot of people throw out these big numbers and there's nothing behind that. But, transparency is really huge for me. Right. And, in the Facebook group that I run and the masterminds I run, I'm an open book. I mean, I'm very much sounds like you are too, right? It is just transparency is the way that relationships are born.
The name of
Creates
my book is,
trust.
the subtitle of my book is "Failing Forward to Financial Freedom." I fall down so many times in this book, my nose should be flat.
Yeah.
So how did you do this? And let's back up. So give us the history. When did you start? How many years has it been? Was your wife fully on board? How did you stumble into this? Like, give me the
Yeah. So actively started in 2014. We bought our first,
hasn't
my
been
wife.
very long.
No. So 5 years. I think we just passed our 5-year anniversary of
What
this.
were you doing before?
Working a W-2, same thing as I'm doing now, just trying to figure out how to climb the corporate ladder and build wealth. And finally, a light bulb went off in my head and
What
thinking,
kind of industry?
technology, information technology.
Oh,
Currently work for a cybersecurity firm. And I'm a direct sales coach.
You're doing this part time.
Yeah. Real estate's part-time. Yep.
Does your wife work?
She's a stay-at-home mom she has her own little side business, home decor side business. Yep.
Okay, good. Hard working too. So you're both working.
Yep.
What got you into the buying? What got you into real estate? What was the turning point?
So the turning point with us, really, you've probably heard some people mention Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. So I stumbled upon that book when we were 6 months pregnant with our first son. And that just had a paradigm shift in the way I think about building wealth, right? It really woke me up and said, hey, you're never going to get to that wealth that you want to get without having these additional income streams. So then we started focusing on real estate. We eventually landed on buy and hold. And figured out what it means for property cash flow. We created our investing criteria. I would say we adopted some, right? That the people who were really successful before us that we learned from, and then sticking to those. I told somebody yesterday I had zero idea that I would buy any properties this year, do 0 transactions. Again, you were talking about where the market's going. I was concerned where the market was going to go. Let's not do anything. Here we are. We've sold 2 properties that equaled 4 doors. And now we're into these limited, and we did really good on it. And then it's allowed us to go into these limited partnerships where we're up, huge.
You 1031 them?
One of them I did. One of them I was able to. Yep.
Okay, let's talk about cash flow. It's real easy in your beginning days to deceive yourself on what your cash flow really is.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
learn that lesson?
Yeah. Yeah. So cash flow, I love when I talk to other folks, hey, how do you define cash flow? Let's make sure we're talking the same terminology. Because most people hit the hard costs, right? The maintenance and repairs, the property management fees, taxes, insurance, mortgage, all that good stuff. But they typically forget vacancy and capital expenses, right? So I go with the acronym TRIM VC. So that covers everything. Easy for me to remember. What's your TRIM VC? That's taxes, repairs, insurance, maintenance, vacancy, and capital expenses. If you do all that minus your rent, then that's your cash flow, right? So I learned that lesson pretty hard. I said we actively started investing in 2014. What I like to call is our false start in investing happened when I bought a property in 2006. Bought it, thought I was going to live in it and flip it after a couple of years, make this huge cash payment that you see on all these TV shows. That didn't turn out to be the case. I had to hold on to it for about 8 years, rented it out after we got it remodeled. And I finally figured out, okay, how do I calculate this cash flow stuff? Once I did it on that property that we had bought in 2006, I realized I was losing $300 a month. And I was renting at the top of the market. It's one of the best neighborhoods there is in the city. And
that was part of the problem too.
Yeah. Yep.
It was one of the best neighborhoods. I mean,
Yep.
it's
there's a sliding scale when it comes to asset class and cash flow, right? They typically go parallel, right? The higher asset class, the less cash flow you're going to get, if any at all. It could be negative, right? And if your asset class is class D, you're going to cash flow very well. I eventually learned that too. So we try to settle in, the C plus, B minus areas where you typically get a little bit of both.
Yeah. So typical learning curve stuff, because one of the things that aggravates me about the buy and hold strategy, not the strategy itself, but the way the gurus present it. They always walk in the room, they turn on the light, they turn on the projector, and the first thing out of their mouth was, okay, so you're bringing in $1,500 a month and your payment's $1,000, so you're making $6,000 a year cash flow. It's like bullshit.
Nope.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
No, that's you just negated. First of all, as the landlord, you got every liability from the back fence to the front mailbox, everything. And you can write it however you want to, but at the end of the day, it's still yours. And no one's gonna, people don't take care of things the way you do. So that was TRIM VC. List them out again: taxes,
repairs, insurance, maintenance, vacancy, and capital expenses.
Capital expenses. What's the difference? Capital expenses is improvements.
Capital expenses typically is defined by your CPA of anything over, I think it's $2,000 or $2,500, right? So new roof, air conditioner, that kind of thing. And I misspoke on the M. The M is the mortgage.
Okay, because as I say, what's the difference in maintenance and capital improvement?
Yep. That's me misspeaking.
Okay. Well, So, and you sound like you're kind of like me. You have to get like hit in the head with a baseball bat before, like, okay, that's why they say this. That's what that strategy or that idea is about. Yeah, me too. You can tell me the burner's hot, but I'm touching that son of a gun.
Yeah.
I'm touching it. Maybe twice. You know what I mean?
There's something like guys like you and me, we've got to learn on our own, right? Doesn't matter how many times we can't do it. I'm going to push that button. I'm going to do it.
I know it says, eject, but
I still want to hit it. Just see what happens. Yeah,
so,
you're not alone. You're not alone on that one.
Is your wife on board with you with all this, or is it like I had to drag my wife into entrepreneurialism like a caveman by the back of her hair? She was kicking and screaming and wailing and crying the whole time and was petrified that I was, getting us.
Yeah. Now she is on board. She's actually a lot of times my voice of reason, right? One of the things I love.
But who listens to that?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we've got to push that button. We got to grab that stove. But I'll grind on a situation for a couple of days. I love this about my wife, but it also frustrates me. Is I'll grind on an issue for a couple of days, and then I'll go finally give up and go talk to her and say, "Hey, I'm running into this issue. What do you think?" And within seconds, she gives me the most obvious answer that I need to implement, and I'll go do it, and it works out perfect. But no, she's been on board from the very beginning. I think the difference between you and I is that I'm not looking to quit and go real estate full time. I don't think I'll ever do that. I think I'll still continue to earn, invest, repeat, which is our motto at the W2 Capitalist, is just making sure, because I really like what I do. I get to coach a group of sales folks and see them be successful. And there's also, I just don't have enough of that entrepreneurial spirit to take that leap right by myself.
Not yet.
Not yet. Maybe not yet. I get asked all the time.
Let me word this for you. You don't have enough of the entrepreneurial spirit, or you just don't have enough cash flow to it. If you were all paid off on all your accounts, you'd be jumping.
No, I don't know. No, we're within
your job and you got the insurance. I mean, there's a lot to be said for it. But at some point, most people I know, when they get enough money coming in or enough cash flow, they get tired of being told what to wear, when to show up, when they can go on vacation, when they can go watch their kids' basketball games, and how long they can go on vacation. At some point,
and I think that goes to the company you work for and the position you're in. I'm to that point where I have a lot of flexibility in that, and that definitely helps with that. Now, if that ever changes, they come in and we, new management comes in and just says, hey, no, this is not how we're going to operate anymore. I think the trigger for me is going to be when that happens versus because we're almost there with our cash flow. We could, if we wanted to make some contingencies, we could be done with the W2 world, but we don't, right? I mean, my ultimate goal is, and I stole this from somebody, is to build 300 years of generational wealth for my family. I am way far away from that goal, right? And I've got a lot of work to do. So I think having the W2 job and still, stacking my cash, paying attention to the market, I'm going to get there, but I'm going to be working for a long time.
Well, that's cool. But you obviously you like what you do,
Yeah.
Two things. You have a college degree?
I do.
Where'd you graduate from?
Jacksonville State University.
Okay, and then how old are you?
I'm 40.
Okay, well, I mean, you got the whole world. Funny. I didn't find my butt with both hands till I was 34, and then it was about 36 before I got up to speed.
Yeah. Same here. There's something about that age group, I think, is you finally something finally clicks, right?
Well, I can tell you what it is, but I'm not sure it's,
Well, you stop thinking with one head and start thinking with the other. Is that it?
Exactly. I got married when I was 30, and kind of settled down, and I found myself with a lot of time on my hands. And I was able to concentrate on how to be successful for once.
There you go. Yeah.
It's amazing how not in control we are sometimes based on where we are in our hormonal cycle of life,
Yeah.
So, but I say that I see a lot of kids now in their 20s buying their first houses, in the early 20s, and even some in their teens now and then. But I mean, there's a lot of people under 25 doing some pretty
cool stuff. Yeah.
And today, with the internet and the education that's offered, I'm not a big fan of college myself, but I came from that camp where I couldn't be a fan of it or lament it. I just needed to go on. I think one of the positives for those that are listening that are not college material or not going to make it through college for whatever reason, finances, is it's not the end all, and actually could be one of the greatest blessings, which it is in my life. I didn't get 4 more years of that brainwashing, or 6 years, depending on if you want to get your master's, whatever. Yeah. I made so little money that it was pretty easy to get independent. I just had to find something I was just pretty good at, because trying to replace $15 an hour wasn't the end of the world. The greatest thing was once I got self-employed and I figured out how to turn $15, how to make $15 an hour, which meant I could quit a job.
Right.
Then when I figured out how to turn 15 into 20, I was 100% recipient of the increase. And then when I did 20 to $50 an hour, I was 100% recipient of that. At one point, I'm worth like $800 an hour, which.
Yeah, and I don't know that I will not push college on my kids. And to be fair, my parents didn't push it on me either. You know, my dad, some of the best advice that I did not take from my dad is in high school. He said, and he's now a retired fireman, but you know, most firemen work 24, all 48, and the other 48 they do some sort of trade.
Yeah.
So he had connections to carpenters, plumbers, electricians. So his theory for me, or what he wanted me to do, was every summer when I was in high school, is one summer I'd go to work for an electrician, one summer I'd go work for a plumber, one summer I'd go work for a carpenter. If I would have done that, I would have been a lot further along in my investing career because I would know those trades. I would understand what it takes to get things done. And that's the best advice that I never listened to, never grasped. And yeah, so
Oh, there's a book title, Best Advice I Never Took.
yeah, that's it. That's it. You know, he focused on that. He didn't focus on going to college, right? But for some reason, I got it in my head that I needed to do it. And one of the things that my parents did for me is that they said, you know, because I started applying for all these schools my senior year in high school, and they're like, "We see you're applying. Who's going to pay for this college?" And I boldly and confidently look at them, and I said, "Well, y'all are." Boy, they cracked up and laughed their head off, and they said, "Look, your brother found a way to pay for his college. You got to do the same thing." So that was a wake up call for me, right? And really treated me how to learn, you know, is it worth it? Is it worth the investment? Because it is an investment. And like you said, there's brainwashing. There's some things in there I don't understand why they don't teach in college, right? Like how to build wealth, right? How to balance a freaking checkbook. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, how to mitigate your taxes. You know, we're going to pay them the rest of our life. Why don't there a course on how to mitigate your taxes and W-2 versus self-employed and the write-off game? Where is that?
Well, if you look at the way the school systems, most of them get government funding. So they're not going to teach you how to, you know, not pay or get funding to the schools. It's basically what they're trying to do.
The more money, the more this could get into like a trickle down conversation, but the more money an entrepreneur puts in his pocket, the more businesses he opens and the more product he moves up and down the street. And every time that stuff moves, there's a tax paid.
That's
trucks at someone, there's gas and tires and, you know.
Fair. That's a fair. I mean, fair
what was it? Friedman?
Sigmund Freud?
No, Friedman.
I didn't know if you're going psychological on me or not.
He won the Pulitzer Prize in like 1979 or something for how to economy. The economy, the model was based on never tax the business owner, never ever tax that man because he is driving an economy. He is causing more taxation than he'll ever be able to pay in his lifetime.
Yeah,
leave him the hell alone.
Yeah,
and then
I agree.
He won the Pulitzer Prize on economy, and then we didn't hire him, and he went to Brazil and made them like independent and like. Anyway, enough of that. So, I don't know. We're kind of going long. I don't know what your time constraints are. How are you doing?
I got to get to work.
All right. So, this has been Jay Helms. I want you to go to ariainvestorsummit.com/Helms, HELMS, and get your free guide, 10-step guide to buying and holding a small multifamily rental property. This guy has 300 units, did it in 5 years. He's over in Florida, not the least expensive place in the world to do this. In fact, he does it all over the place because of that, probably. And check out what he has to say. His podcast is W2 Capitalist. W2 Capitalist. And hey, will you have me on your podcast?
Absolutely, Mitch. I've really enjoyed the conversation. You got a wealth of knowledge that I personally want to tap into. I want to get in more into the private money lending and talk more about your course. Maybe I can get a freebie out of you.
Here, hang on when this is over. I'll give you my phone number. We'll talk for just a second.
Okay.
And then I'm going to get going. So this is Mitch Stephen. Thank you all out there for stopping by to get you some Jay Helms. Talk about buy and hold. I hope you guys are achieving your goals. Please check out taxfreefuture.com. If you do not have a self-directed or tax deferred or non-taxable retirement income, then you've got to go to taxfreefuture.com and find out what your financial advisors are not telling you, because there's a reason why they're not telling you, and I'm going to tell you what it is and why they're not telling you. Take control of your own financial future, taxfreefuture.com. This is where you get tax-deferred and tax-free retirement plans, and with checkbook control even. All right, we're out of here. Say goodbye.
Bye.